All right. Hey, good morning. This is Jack Kelly with the Blind Ambition podcast with Jack Kelly, yours truly. And today we have like a really cool, different, interesting topic to talk about. Now, you may not be aware of this, but tomorrow is the elections, the presidential elections. I know. It's been really quiet. No one's been talking about it. So you might not be aware. What we want to talk about today is this. If you're not aware of it, because I really wasn't too aware of this up until recently, I didn't know that you could bet on the elections. So you have this thing where you can bet on places like Kalshi, Polymarkets, Predict It, and other places, so that if you feel, hey, I like Trump and I want Trump to win, I'm going to bet, I'm going to put money down, have skin in the game, and put whatever X amount of money you have betting on Trump. Or let's say you're a Kamala Harris fan, you want to bet and say, hey, my person who I want to win is Kamala Harris. I'm going to put money on it and bet. And so what happens is that you get this situation where people start making major bets and it gets the attention of the media. So what happens is, let's say for the case, just take this as an example, Donald Trump, is getting lots of bets in his favor that people want him to be the president. So what happens is then the media picks it up and says, hey, in the betting markets, people are betting on Trump. They're betting on Trump and he's like 70 to, 30, 70% for Trump, 30% of Harris. Or it could be the other way around. But what happens when you see those numbers, it's very easy to feel like, oh, is this what's happening? And if you see the media talking about the results of the gambling, it could influence the impact. Because let's say Trump, or let's say Harris is winning in the sense that they're betting more money on her. Some people may decide, you know what, it's a lost cause. I'm not going to even bother to vote. Or others may say, oh no, we got to bet more because we wanted to make it look like our person is going to win. And it just seems even though it's legal, but it's not legal everywhere. If I'm not mistaken, right, Christine? It's like some places it's okay to do it, other can't. I could be wrong about that. And take what I'm saying now as with a grain of salt, being very frank, because this is all new and different. And I don't think there's a lot of laws around it. I don't think there's been a lot of regulators around it. I don't think there's a lot of compliance people who've been looking at it. So this is still kind of virgin frontier to a certain extent. Outside of the US, there's been betting a lot on elections and everything in different countries. But here, this is kind of a new and growing thing, betting on college sports and other things that they never did before. So one of the biggest concerns is, could the betting change the direction of the elections? Christine, from your perspective, what do you think? Because we've been talking about this a while now before before we went live. Do you think that's problematic?
It can certainly discourage voters. And the thing that I find so interesting is just how many people vote from like outside the country. So then it's like almost feels like foreign interference. What do you think about that?
See, that's a good point because, I was writing a piece and I could probably publish it later today where you have this guy. This is like a movie. This stuff is always crazy. So you got this guy, a French dude, right? I'm not sure if he's in America now or not. And his name is Théo, right? Théo. And he bet $30 million on Trump to win. $30 million. So if his bets win at the time, now it changes, like any gambling, it changes, the odds keeps changing. It's not static. So as of the time I wrote about it, if he would have won his bet, he would have $80 million in returns. $80 million. And if he's wrong, maybe he loses everything. So it's crazy. So you'll have a French trader, right? And when I say trader, like not a trader, but like a trader trading stocks or whatever. But this instance is trading, I guess, money for who's going to win the elections. So you have this trader, right? And it, it's wild because you don't know who this guy really is. Like, is it his money? Is there, let's say, in France, this like gazillionaire who's giving money to this dude, Theo? And listen, I don't want to make any allegations. Don't sue me. So this is all conjecture. I'm not saying or, pointing a finger. I don't want to be sued. I'm just giving a big picture of someone who's learning this and sharing it with the audience as we're all learning together because it's still relatively new, not new, but relatively new thing that's going on. So could it be you have this, multi-billionaire person who, for whatever reason, wants Kamala or wants Donald Trump and giving that money or lending that money to bet? Or who knows? Is it Russia? Is it China? Like, I don't know how much. And for the compliance people and attorneys and regulators in the audience, please let me know because then I could have a follow-up, um, a follow-up podcast to fill in these gaps because it could be those monies are funneled into people who have their own agenda from different countries, which is wild because we're always talking about interference. Remember, like a few years, Russian interference. Oh, Russia. This could be real interference. Now, do I know that? No, I have no idea. But when you have money and you're putting money on the line, it's a whole different story. And here's another thing, too. I think what happens, in my opinion, is that if people are betting with their own money, there's a feel that they really do want that person to win. Whereas, let's be frank, when you have these pollsters, I don't know if you're aware of it, but if you peel back, you know, the layers, most of the pollsters, they choose a side. They're going to be on the Democratic side or they're going to be on the Republican side. And then supposedly you have people who are in between, like a guy like Nate Silver and some others. And I'm not even sure if he has a side. Maybe he does. I don't know. So I think what happens is that if you're just looking, to make these bets, you have skin in the game. You're going to make $80 million or maybe lose $80 million. If you read the regular pollsters, well, they got their thumb on the scale because they are representing maybe the Democrat or they're representing the Republican or the Libertarian or whatever if there's a third party candidate. But they're not betting on it, so they don't have skin in the game. So also I feel what happens is that the ones who are betting gets more attention because it's like, hey, if Jack and Christine are betting on it, well, maybe that's more important than just someone who answers a poll and say, "Oh, sure, I'm going to vote for so and so." Maybe they will, maybe they won't. So that I think also makes it a little lopsided. What do you think, Chris?
I think social media also adds another element to it because people are using models, like predictive models that involve social media. They're tracking comments and engagement and reach. But then we have someone like Elon Musk, who's an outspoken proponent of Donald Trump. So then a lot of these bettors, are they using faulty data as well? And I had actually read that that's why they predicted the 2016 election wrong because they were going based on social media data. And then we later found out that like Facebook was doing election interference as well.
It's so funny. Like you would think after all these years we would have this tight, right? Like we're America for goodness sakes, right? We should be able to know how to do an election and do it right. But there's so many things. Like give you an example with Elon Musk. I happen to like Elon Musk. I think he's doing great things. And is he perfect? No, but no one's perfect. But giving out $1 million to vote, that seems a little, I don't want to say sus. That does feel a little like you're buying votes. If that's what you're talking about, Chris, it does seem a little bit like, okay, and I don't know, maybe let me take a step back. So I'm not sure if everybody's aware of this. So Musk, my understanding, what he was doing is saying, particularly in Pennsylvania, I think, is that if you would vote or I don't know, do something, you could be in the running to get $1 million. And you may have seen on social media where he's giving out a big check, holding it up, big check, giving $1 million to someone because they voted. I don't know. That doesn't seem, that seems a little bit like, are people now going to vote for Trump because Elon Musk is saying, I'm going to give you $1 million if I pick you out, randomly because, you voted and you gave, I guess, imagine you have to give, your information. So it's legit. That's pretty wild. I don't know. Is that stepping on line? Then there are other things too, like with the pollsters. What I think happened in 2016 in part, and probably might happen again, you get people who, what they call shy voters, meaning that they really don't want to talk about who they're going to vote for because either they're afraid that their family will like say, "Hey, how dare you vote for this person?" or their friends or their boss or whatever. So either A, you just don't say anything, and it's that shy voter, or B, you just like, "Oh, yeah, I don't know," or you just go along with it. "Oh, yeah, I'm going to vote like whoever, the important people in your life are just to make them happy." So there's so many things that you would think that the election should be just so much tighter and better than it is now, but it just seems like the Wild West. And that's what I want to bring this out. And partly, you're like in a podcast to be able to wrap something up and say, here's how it is and how it should work. But since it's all new and different and tension is high, it's hard to figure it out. Um,
Do you think Americans should be allowed to vote on the US election results? To me, it's kind of like you wouldn't want the baseball player betting on his own game.
Well, that's what happened to Pete Rose famously. Like he was a great, baseball player, much beloved. He was like a hardcore guy. And he ended up from my recollection, he was betting, because he kind of knew the sport and knew whatever, and they kicked him out of the Hall of Fame basically, or from going into the Hall of Fame. So it's evolving because like if I'm not mistaken, even in college sports now, you could bet and in other things you could bet. So it's like we've become a very bet happy society. And I don't know if it's
Mhm.
good or bad, but it's definitely changing. Is that I wouldn't be surprised that the next cycle you're going to see more betting, but hopefully you can have more guardrails in place to make sure that all right, who's giving the money to bet? Are shady people vetting? Are there people from China, from Saudi Arabia who have like huge amounts of money trying to game the system because they have a vested interest? And it's wild that it's not talked enough about. Like I don't know about you guys who are listening to this. Like, have you even heard about all these betting sites? Uh, are you aware of like how loose it is compared to other things? And it's kind of a little scary, like, could this really tip the scales? And that doesn't seem to be fair.
I think it'll definitely be ongoing because even though Kalshi, I think they won against the CFTC last
Mhm.
month and were granted the power to allow open betting on the election. It could still get taken away, but after the election cycle. So it'll be interesting to see the results of this.
Yeah, because there's things like wash sales where and again, I'm not gonna profess to be an expert, but I'll refer to my compliance professionals and legal and risk and audit professionals, but with wash sales, as I understand, what happens is that a group of people may be trading, make an example, trading a stock back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And the reason they're doing it is to make it look like this stock is in high demand and it's really exciting. Think back to like in the midst of COVID when you had all these meme stocks and everyone's losing their mind of FOMO, fear of missing out. They got to jump on that next hot thing, whether it's Chewy or Pet, I don't know, whatever the things were hot at the time. I forget now. So similarly, I wonder, like, this is something that we have to worry about, that this is going to get out of control. However, with the wash trades, it could border. I wonder if there could be criminal actions. They're saying, hey, if you're doing these wash trades on these sites, could that really be a violation of some rules because you're trying to game the system? Because you can't be naive, is that if you see on the betting sites and then the news reports on it and talks about, you know, who has more, votes based on their bets versus the other, uh, I don't know. It seems like it could really, you could really manipulate things. And that's not too cool, right, Chris?
Yeah, and we were talking about earlier, I was asking, do you think people vote on who they truly think will win or the party that they're interested in? Because let's say a site like Polymarket, it's a cryptocurrency um like betting site, and they determined that right now like the Republicans will win, and they have a special
Mhm.
interest in that because the Republicans may be more crypto friendly to them. So
It's a good question because I could see some people, a lot of people love gambling. Let's take that as a baseline. I'm not much of a gambler because I invest in the stock market and other things in a way that's kind of gambling. It's more speculation investing, but people could say it's sort of gambling. But this is really kind of big time gambling. And I think what happens is this: if let's say that guy Theo, the French dude who is making these $30 million bets, but not only $30 million bets. It's interesting. He would make like maybe $10 bets and 50,000 like in different increments. So I don't know why that is, but it could be that they feel, hey, if I can make money, I don't care. I'll bet. Think about it, people bet on everything. They'll bet on dog races. They'll bet on horse racing. They'll bet on like what is that like? We have they put two chickens against each other to fight, like chicken fight. Like the U.S. loves betting. So does like most of the world. They love betting on stuff. So I think yeah, there's some people who are just saying I couldn't care less about Trump or Harris, but if I can make some money here, I'm happy with it. But I could also imagine there's some people who really want their person to win, and they're going to try to do whatever it can to make bets to make it look like their person's going to win. So I see it both ways. Is that what you were meaning, Chris?
yeah, it's very curious to me. And then you also wonder what they're also doing behind the scenes to maybe influence people's votes and whatnot. Because we don't know who exactly is betting on this and who is prohibited from betting on it.
Especially like places that are based outside of the US. And like it seems like even going back with like crypto, they were putting so much onerous terms on these crypto platforms that a lot of them went offshore. So yeah, like you got to wonder who is really behind it. And there's a lot of money outside the U.S. too. You have very wealthy people all over the world, and they have their own vested interests. Now, I'm not saying they're doing it, but who knows? That's the thing. Who knows? And it's up in the air, and you don't know. And the repercussions are really serious, in terms of these things. So I think for this podcast, I wanted to keep it relatively short because this is a new and relatively new and growing area. And I want to be fair, places like Kalshi, whatever, I'm sure that very well. I'm sure they do their best. They make sure they're very honest. They make sure they have the controls in place, the policies in place, the procedures in place, the people in place, and all that. I just want to bring up to the audience is that this is kind of a new evolving thing, and the chances are it's going to keep growing. But hopefully, when it grows, it gets more mature, and that's what happens with a lot of things. When it starts out, it's freewheeling, it's chaotic, but then as time goes on, you're able to kind of get more guardrails in, get more safety in, get more like regulatory stuff around there to make sure that, something like the presidential elections aren't kind of gamed. Um, but so I thought this was a timely one to talk about too, because obviously tomorrow is the elections. So I thought this would be an interesting time to at least bring up this topic that I feel a lot of people may not be too aware of or were interested in, but didn't know much about it and now want to look more deeply into it. So I was hoping that this could kind of open up some eyes of like, oh wow, this is new, this is different, and then maybe a lot of people will be interested in betting themselves on, because I don't know this, but I'd imagine it's not just the presidential elections. I imagine you're betting on all sorts of other types of elections too. I could be wrong, but I would think they would offer that as well. So this seems to be an emerging growth area and one that I think we all go to take a look at and see how it plays out. So that being said, so vote for whoever you love and whoever you think is going to do best. And um, if I can make one little pivot before we end up, I want to give a caveat. I'm going to talk about this in another podcast coming up. The odds are, no pun intended, the odds are that going into the holidays, going into whoever's going to, to see who wins the election, and whoever wins, I think they don't get sworn in till like the end of January. It could be very chaotic. Now, I'm hoping it's not going to be really crazy, but just it could be more chaotic than usual. So for people who are looking for a job, people who are currently working, be very smart and very careful. If you're looking for a job, I would say there's a higher chance that it's going to take longer because it's just too easy for companies to say, hey, there's so much going on, you know, let's say it's taking a while to count the votes. Let's say it's a little disputed. It's too easy for companies to say, let's hold off and let's wait till we know what's happening before we hire. Also, I'm afraid to say some companies may get spooked with kind of this chaotic, potentially chaotic. I hope not. And they may then start laying people off because they feel we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know. And they may be afraid if Trump wins. They may be afraid of Kamala Harris wins. And they may say, you know what? Let's start cutting costs. Let's make some layoffs just in case things don't go as well as we like to be. So I want to give this, I hope this doesn't happen and I hope I'm wrong, but I think I view sometimes my job is to bring these things out to people. I rather not have to talk about this, but I think it's helpful to share it because if I don't share it, and let's say you're looking for a job and like nothing is happening, in back of your mind, you can say, yeah, I know Jack was mentioning because of the uncertainty. And I've seen this in 25 plus years of recruiting. Whenever there's uncertainty, it always goes in the favor of a company saying, let's wait, let's take some time, let's kick the can down the road. We'll come back to it because it's easier. It's easier to do that. So don't get frustrated. If you have a job, hang tight, be careful, don't lose it just in case. Now, I'm giving you the downside. Hopefully elections go perfect, everything is great, everything is wonderful, whoever wins, it turns out to be fantastic. That'd be the best option. But I like to prepare people just in case. So I hope for today, for this podcast, Blind Admission with Jack Kelly, that you enjoy it, that you learn something, you're interested. And we're going to post it on LinkedIn and X and Blind and Facebook and all the social media. Feel free, if you have more information about this than I do, to let me know. You won't hurt my feelings, to share and say, hey, Jack, you're an idiot. You don't have to call me an idiot, but you say, hey, it's not like the way you said. That's okay, because we're trying to learn together. So feel free, once we post it online, to give your comments and thoughts and whether you betted yourself, how it works, and so forth. So we could be a little dynamic about it. And then we could always maybe have a follow-up podcast to see how this all works. So I appreciate your attention. Um, vote for whoever you think is going to do best. Hopefully everything works out really well. and let's see what happens tomorrow. And we have a lot of new guests coming, coming up. It's gonna be really cool, and I'll keep you guys posted. So, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for helping us out and build this podcast. I really appreciate it. Give us like 5 stars, tell your friends, all that kind of good stuff. Subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow. We have just let you know, we have the CFO from GoDaddy who's going to be on, and he seems like a really good guy, really nice person. So this should be another good podcast coming tomorrow. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Enjoy the election day, and we'll see how this all plays out. Thanks so much.